Hi, and welcome to Grails to Astonish. Today I'm going to go through day 2 of ComicLink's upcoming Summer Featured Auction. These are the high-grade, big-ticket books that ComicLink is auctioning off next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. They've got about 1,000 books in this auction. Last video I went through about 300 of them, the A's through C's. And in this video I'm going to go from C to M. And then the next video I'm going to do, hopefully tomorrow, will cover M through Z, the last batch of books. I just finished Captain America in the last video, and we are still in C, but after Captain America, we hit crime. There are a lot of books in this auction that start with the word crime, and you know when you hear crime, we're talking about pre-code 50s comics. After superheroes had waned, the big thing became horror, science fiction, and crime. There are some key pre-code horror and crime books in this auction. The first one I'm going to talk about is Crime Does Not Pay 24. This book is currently bidding at $5,400. And the fair market in this copy, which is only a 4.0, is $8,750. Here's the thing. I'm not a fan of this cover. I'm more than not a fan of this cover. I really don't like it. It is a man laughing while he burns a woman's head on a hot stove, which is awful. It's this weird thing with pre-code horror. I kind of grew up, or throughout my life, have been familiar with the history of the comics code, that there were really racy depictions of sex, gore, violence in that period, and society kind of recoiled and cracked down on it, and they got the comics code. And I've always viewed that as a shame and an injustice that these books were censored and comics became very tame afterwards. I mean, it was a huge creative renaissance in the Silver Age after the comics code was imposed, but the publishers and the writers and the artists were severely reined in what they could do. I've always viewed that as a bad thing, but looking at some of these books, in particular this one, Crime Does Not Pay, I mean, if I were in 1942, this is long before the comics code. So if I was walking up to a newsstand in 1942 and I saw this on the rack, I would be horrified, upset. I'm not saying this shouldn't exist. It's interesting, and it's of value to recognize what is going on inside of all of us in the cultural psyche. Seeing this book is a piece of history. I don't have a problem with this book existing. I don't have a problem with this book being sold on ComicLink. The thing that I raise an eyebrow at is someone bidding $5,400 for it. Does the person who is paying $5,400 for this comic, or more if it ends up going for fair market, are they buying this because they enjoy it and they want to have it on their wall? Are they buying this because this is a part of history, this is a part of art history, this is a part of pop culture history that is of interest to them? I'm just a little curious about that and a little concerned. I find this comic troubling. Moving on. We're still deep in crime. We got Crime Does Not Pay, Crime Patrol, and then we got Crime SuspenStories. I've always had a hard time with the word SuspenStories. I don't know why they did that. It's suspense stories. They made it one word. It's just confusing for me. We got Crime SuspenStories 6. Now this cover, I don't have as big of a problem with. This is just plain gross. It's not a woman's head being burned on a stove. In more of a supernatural vein, we've got a guy who's been hanged, his neck is broken, and he's walking around with a noose around his neck and his bone clearly protruding out the side of his neck, which is really gross. This is a 9.4 cover. It's currently bidding at only $1,000, but the fair market on it is $3,800. Then we got Crime SuspenStories number 20, another hanging one. This one's going for more. The bidding's at $1,722, and I think the fair market is a few thousand for this one. Again, we got the bone protruding from his neck. They were really into that. This one's only a 5.5 though. It's kind of surprising that this 9.4 is bidding at $1,000 and this 5.5, a very similar cover, is bidding at $1,722. I think this is just a better known cover. I think it was involved in the Seduction of the Innocent hearings that were had. This cover got flagged, and so it's of value for that reason. Then we got Crime SuspenStories 22. This is another one that really bothers me. We've got a woman being beheaded. It is a shocking and disturbing cover, but I just find the violence against women in these covers really troubling. I don't know why someone would want to own this. The bidding on this is $11,000. What are you going to do with it? Fair market is $20,000. This is a 7.5 copy. With these EC horror and crime, science fiction issues, I don't really care that much about grade. I get really fixated on grade with the superhero stuff. Actually, this next book kind of explains my reasoning on not caring about grade for these titles. We have Crypt of Terror number 18, which is actually, what does it say here, 1950, the second issue of the title that became Tales from the Crypt. So this became sort of the flagship EC horror title. This is a 9.8 and it's a pedigree. This is from the Gaines file copy. So William Gaines was the publisher of EC Comics, and he did something that other publishers don't seem to have done, which is he kept at least one copy of all of his titles and preserved them in perfect condition. So every EC title pretty much seems to have a Gaines file copy in 9.8. So the idea of pursuing the best copy is a little bit moot because the Gaines file copy is the best copy. You get the Gaines pedigree copy. Kind of spoils the game if you buy a 5.0 or an 8.0 and you think you might be able to clean it and get it higher. There's always the Gaines copy, and that's going to get the highest price. William Gaines took the fun out of it for collectors. But also, I just think with these EC horror ones, the beat up 3.0s look as good to me as the 9.8s. I can't really even explain that. Why does a Fantastic Four number 1 in 9.4 excite me where Tales from the Crypt doesn't? It doesn't matter to me what grade it's in. It does seem to just be me because the prices do skyrocket at high grades for these EC books as well. So this Crypt of Terror, number 18, the current bidding is at $4,200. Fair market's $9,800. That's our little crime wave. We've got through the crime and crypt books, and we're on to D, which is Daredevil. Now we get to our first big Marvel Silver Age key, Daredevil number 1 in 9.6. Now this is really interesting because we've got a 9.6 and a 9.4. So the bidding is split. Further, this 9.6 is off white to white, while this 9.4 is white pages. Color of the pages inside the book. Once they're sealed in plastic, you're never going to see them again. You got to take CGC's word for it. Page color doesn't matter very much in mid-grade, even low, high-grade books. But when you get into the 9.2s, 9.4, 9.6, 9.8, the people who are paying for these high-end books really care a lot about page color. So 9.6 isn't going to go for nearly as much when it's off white to white as it would be if it was white. And this 9.4 is going to be desired because it's white pages. The fair market, though, on this 9.6 is $105,000. Daredevil 1 and 9.8, the fair market is currently $360,000. There's 3 copies. One notch down at 9.6, $105,000. In 2021, April of 21, peak of the comic boom, somebody paid $150,000 for this 9.6. It was a white pages 9.6, but the market's way down from that. I'm not even sure it's hit bottom on Daredevil number 1. Last sale, also on Heritage. In April of 21, it sold for $150,000, and then November of 22, just a year and a half later, also on Heritage, sold for $90,000, and there hasn't been a recorded sale of this book since then. Bidding on this right now is $31,888. It will certainly go higher than that. I don't think it's going to go to fair market of $105,000. I think it's more likely to be $90,000 or lower. This 9.4, the fair market is $38,000. It's a big drop off. But this is a white pages. The 9.4 might go for north of $43,000. And the 9.6 might go for south of $90,000. There's also an 8.5. So this is a great auction to try and get a copy of Daredevil 1 in high grade. There's 3 copies, 2 very nice ones. One 8.5. That 8.5 is off white to white. Bidding on that one is $6,806. I'll bet you somebody's going to get that 8.5 for a screaming deal. And with these 2 drawing a lot of the bidders, these 2 higher grade ones, I think this 8.5 is going to go for a lot less than $11,500. Then they've got Daredevil number 2. Daredevil number 2, not really a key. Generally, when you have a big Marvel #1, the #2 issue of that book is 10% or less of the value. Fantastic Four #2, Avengers #2, Daredevil #2. They go for a whole lot less than the #1s for obvious reasons. However, in this auction, they've got a 9.8 of Daredevil #2. There are only 4 9.8s, and this is one of them. The last sale at 9.8 was 8 years ago. The last recorded sale on Comic Connect, 9.8 white pages. This is not white. This is off-white to white. And we'll see if it gets that now. The market's been way, way up and then way, way down since then. The current bidding is already $23,833, so it's halfway there. I'll bet you this 9.8 of issue 2, it's going to go for significantly more than the 8.5 of issue 1. It may even go for close to what the 9.4 of issue 1 goes for. Daredevil #2 on the next page in 9.6 white pages. That's going to get a lot of the 9.8 off-white to white bidders who are going to want the white pages at 9.6. Bidding on that one is only $2,600. Whereas, let me go back. The bidding on the Daredevil 2 9.8 is $23,000. That's amazing. Wow, what a difference. $23,833 for a 9.8 off-white to white. And right now, the 9.6 is going at $2,600. Somebody's got to bid that up, way up. Anyway, as I was going to say, after issue 1, really, not a lot of Daredevil keys until Frank Miller came on in the late 70s. You got the Purple Man, who ended up becoming an important character in issue 4. And then what I consider a minor key, you've got issue 16 here. This is basically John Romita's audition for Spider-Man. At this point, Amazing Spider-Man was one of their top-selling books. Steve Ditko was great. Everybody loved his work, but he was clearly unhappy, and Stan Lee knew Ditko wasn't going to stick around for very long. So he was looking for a replacement. Had Romita draw Daredevil #16 with a guest appearance from Spider-Man to see how he did with Spider-Man, and then quickly moved Romita on to the Amazing Spider-Man title with issue 39. It reminds me a little bit of Kirby's collage art. It looks like an almost photographic cityscape in the background with the colorful Daredevil and Spider-Man laid over it, but it's not. It's clearly drawn. Then we've got Detective Comics #1. This is, I believe, the first DC comic from 1937. It's also very nearly the first comic. Comics started being published in 1934, 35, and at that point they were initially just reprints of funny pages. They started doing original stories in 1935. This is very, very early on in the history of comics. Of course, there's no Batman until Detective Comics 27, but Detective Comics #1, extremely scarce, and we've got to be forgiving of the fact that this Detective Comics #1 is a restored 0.5, 37 copies of which 20 are restored. There's only 17 unrestored copies of this book. Gotta mention it, this cover's kind of racist. Somebody is going to comment on this and say, why is that racist? But I don't want to get into it. Take my word for it. This is a racist depiction. Again, wouldn't want it on my wall. Bidding is currently at $8,100. It's very hard to come up with a fair market on this one. The thing is, let's look at it up close. A lot of work's been done on this book. Restoration includes color touch, pieces added, tear seals, centerfold, and page 23 missing. That's a big one. Centerfold is a color copy. So the centerfold came out of this book and somebody just photocopied what that page looked like and stuck it in there. Married cover. That means somebody took the cover from one book and put it on the interior pages of another book. So this book is a mess. I haven't mentioned this. Also, slightly brittle pages. Brittle is a bad, bad word. So this has had extensive C5 restoration, slightly brittle pages. In terms of comic condition, you can't get much worse than this. But all that said, it still looks really good. Again, racist depiction, but the condition of the cover itself is nice and clean, presents well. That explains to me why the bidding is at $8,100. The last sale of a unrestored 0.5 was $15,600 in 2021. Let's see if there's any 0.5 restored. There's 3 in existence. The last sale is 10 years ago for $5,375. Already this is going for higher than that. We got a 3.5 selling this year for $28,800. I think we're going to get closer to that price for this book. It'll be in the tens of thousands, but that's cool to see. You don't often see a Detective Comics #1. And then we've got 2 more Detective Comics issues from before Batman debuted. Then we've got no Detective 27, no 29, no 31. We do have Detective Comics 33, and it's unrestored. We've got issue 33 in 4.5, light tan to off-white pages. Pages are not good. This is a really interesting cover for people interested in the history of Batman, because if you look at the cover, he is carrying a holstered gun. You can see in the notes, first appearance of Thomas Wayne, Martha Wayne, and Joe Chill, Batman gun holster on cover. They were still working out the character of Batman, and they hadn't quite decided yet that he doesn't use guns. Fair market on it is $46,000. Sometimes when you go digging in Go Collect, you can get lucky and you can actually find the actual book that's at auction. You can find its sales history. The serial number on this copy is 41199. Starts with 41199. And here we go, 41199. This is the same copy. And it's sold at Golden Auctions 2 years ago, March 2023, for $46,360. So now we know what someone paid for it, and that person is selling it. Now, I don't know why. This isn't the kind of book you flip. This isn't a book you buy and then sell 2 years later. This is a book you put away for a couple decades. The buyer paid Golden, 15 or 20% commission to the auction house on buying this, and is now losing 10% of it. Not losing, but the person who buys at this auction is giving ComicLink 10% of what they pay. So you got to wait a while to make your money back on these books. You can't just flip it unless you think it's going to go for way more than what you paid for it. And I don't see why there's any reason to think that's going to happen in this book. The market is way down from where it was 2 years ago. But for one reason or another, they're selling it, and they're not even using the same auction house they used to buy it. They're selling it with ComicLink. The bidding is currently at $19,856. That's got a long way to go. It'll certainly go way up from there, but the buyer may end up, when all said and done, losing money on this book. Maybe they just needed to cash out. Then we got 34, no Batman on the cover. Then we got 40. This is another really interesting one and a really, really rare book. We got a total number of 73 copies of Detective Comics number 40. And this one, not only is it unrestored, it's signed. I don't usually care about signatures. I've never bought a signed book. Most of them are signed by Stan Lee. Stan Lee, it seems like for the last 10 or 20 years of his life, anything they put in front of him, he would sign, even if he had nothing to do with it. This is not that. This is signed by Jerry Robinson, not Bob Kane. That makes it much more appealing. Jerry Robinson was 17 years old when he co-created Batman with Bob Kane. It's fairly notorious now that Bob Kane took all the credit for creating Batman and kicked everyone else aside, particularly Bill Finger. But Jerry Robinson was also key creator of not just Batman, but also the Joker and Robin. Now, here's the thing with this cover. So this book, issue 40, is the first appearance of Clayface. The story on the inside is about Clayface. That's not Clayface on the cover. That is supposedly, according to Jerry Robinson, according to Bob Kane, that's the Joker, making this the first Joker cover. It is odd to me that they insist this is the Joker. If you look at his face, his skin color is beige. It's not white. He doesn't even appear to be smiling to me. Some people seem to think he is smiling here. He's got the Joker smile. Doesn't look like it to me. He just looks like a angry guy in a hat. Apparently it's the Joker. And apparently this is the first Joker cover. So we got 3 things. We got the first appearance of Clayface. We got the first Joker cover. We got a signature from Jerry Robinson, done in 2009. He was 17 years old, and I guess 1938, that would make him 62, 71 plus 87 or so, 88 when he signed this. Very hard to value this book, partly because there's so few sales, partly because of the signature. Bidding on this is at $10,005. I'm putting the fair market at $41,000 on the basis of a 6.5 without a signature. It sold for $45,000 last year and $36,000 this year, both pedigree copies. So they've split the difference and put the fair market at $41,000. Now this is a signed copy, and some people will pay more for signatures. I won't. I think this should go for close to that, $41,000 or higher. I don't know if it will. $10,000. Long way to go, but it's got 5 days till the auction closes. Next one we've got is Detective Comics 42. Really cool Batman cover. I really like this one. I don't know what Robin's doing there. Not a super valuable copy. Not going to go for very much. Current bidding's at $1,027. Generally, I don't like the early detective covers as much as the early Batman covers. It's kind of interesting that the detectives, this is a bit of an exception, but for the most part, the detective books had backgrounds. They were set in places. They had sort of a film noirish look. Batman covers were simpler, more iconic, more of a design sensibility, particularly the first 20 or so Batman covers. Detective comics, not as appealing to me. By the way, this Detective Comics 54 is kind of funny to look at. We were just talking about 33. It's virtually a straight lift. Here's 33, different pose, of course, no Robin in the back seat, but here's 54. Robin in the back seat, Batman's falling forward instead of backward, not holding a gun. Crucially, they reused the same cover. Okay, then we got a pedigree 9.6 of a not particularly important issue, second appearance of the Penguin. Okay, I didn't put this one on my list, but that's kind of interesting. $3,188 current bid. Highest graded, one of two. There's no 9.8s. This is pretty good. It's a pedigree. What's the pedigree? Writing so small. It's Rockford Pedigree off-white to weight, pages 9.6. Next one I flagged is Detective Comics 62, Blue Label 7.5. The reason I flagged it is because we were talking just a minute ago about the first Joker cover, Detective issue 40. Early Joker covers, high demand. I find these early Joker covers and pretty much all Joker covers seem to go for above fair market value. I don't know why it would be the case in 2025 that there would be a growing demand for Joker covers. Joker's been around a long time. He's been very, very popular for a very long time, but people love these issues, these Joker covers. There's a case to be made for this being the first real Joker cover. It's very difficult to track because you had two concurrent titles. You had Detective Comics and Batman running. Each month, they both put out issues, and it's hard to tell what happened first. Detective Comics was where Batman started in 1938. Batman number 1, 1940, was the first appearance of the Joker. Detective Comics number 40 came out before Batman number 2, and that had Joker on the cover. So right out of the gates, they knew Joker was going to be a big character. They wanted him on the cover. They put him on the cover of Detective 40. That's the first Joker cover, even though his first appearance is in Batman 1. And then Joker didn't appear on any covers for a while. He was in a lot of the stories in the early Batman issues, but his next cover was this one, Detective Comics 62. And this is the first time he's really clearly Joker on the cover. This was in April of 1942. And then you've got Batman issue 11, which was, I think, June or July of 1942. Now that's the first really good Joker cover, but this is the first obviously, blatantly Joker cover. There are 128 copies in the census. So by the time they got to 62, it was a very popular book. More copies floating around. 9 copies at this grade. There's only 10 copies higher grade than this. Bidding is at $3,100 and the fair market value is $10,000. I'll bet you this book sells for well over $10,000. Compare and contrast with Detective Comics 66, off-white pages. Now, this one is the first appearance of Two-Face, not shown on the cover. And Two-Face is an interesting one because he appeared, this was in 1942, the character was created, and then I think his storyline went on for the next couple of issues, and then he was killed off by around Detective 80 or 82, and the character didn't show up again in comics for 28 years. There were different characters who took on the mantle of Two-Face in 1 or 2 issues, but he was created early on, forgotten, went away, and then brought back in 1971 by Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil in Batman 230-something. But this is technically the first Two-Face, and it says Two-Face right there on the cover. 6.0, bidding is currently at $56.77, $5,677, but the fair market is $14,500. It probably will go for close to that. And then right after that, we got Detective Comics 67, which is the first Penguin cover. It's not the first Penguin. That was Detective 59 or something like that. This is the first time he's on the cover, and he's riding an ostrich. This one's 7.5 off white to white. The population for this is 111 books, but there's only 3 in a grade this high, and there's only 8 in grades higher than 7.5. So really, really high-end copy of the first Penguin cover, and the bidding split on this one. They got another copy at 4.5. The 7.5 is currently bidding at $5,100. The 4.5 is bidding at $2,541, about half that. 4.5 looks dark. It looks a lot worse than the 7.5. Creamed off-white pages. So this is much less desirable cover. The fair market on this 7.5 is $14,000. Issue 66 and issue 67, fair market $14,500, fair market $14,000. Which of these would you rather have? The first appearance of Two-Face, where he's not on the cover. The first cover of the Penguin, not his first appearance. And then third question, would you rather have Detective Comics 62, the first real Joker cover? This one's got a fair market a lot lower at $10,000 than the fair market on these two books. But you and I both know Joker's a much more popular character than Two-Face or Penguin. And the grade is similar. We got a 6.0, 7.5, and 7.5. The 62 should be going for more than 66 and 67. And I will bet you that it does. Nothing else particularly interesting here. I thought most of the great Batman issues, in my opinion, are in the Batman series, not the Detective series. However, we do have Detective 168. This is the origin of the Joker. Somewhat. It's cloudy. You can get into Alan Moore and the history of the character. This is a origin of the Joker in Detective 168, but this is not CGC graded. This is CBCS 3.0 off white to white. So people really like this issue. It's very valuable, but they generally like it to be graded by CGC. Although the bidding for this one is $6,000. Let me look it up real quick. So the population at 3.0 in CGC is 21 copies, fair market of $6,250. We do have CBCS. They don't even list the census for it. They have a 3.0. There's writing by the D. There's no writing here. So this is a different copy. It's a different copy that sold 3 years ago for $9,000. That's the peak of the pandemic bubble. Should not go for that high now, but it is a Joker key. So maybe it will. $6,250. This is already at $6,000. There will probably be more bids. It will probably go for above fair market. To my point, Joker keys go for above fair market. Always. I don't know why the fair market is what it is when it always gets beaten. Yeah, this is already going for more than it should be with 5 days of bidding left. We're skipping over E. There's nothing I flagged in E, but in F we got Famous Funnies 209 at 9.6. This is Frank Frazetta's first Buck Rogers. He is one of the most influential artists of the 20th century, certainly pop artists, created the whole sword and sandals, shirtless Conan look that led to the Schwarzenegger Conan movie. He was very horny. His paintings are very horny. Both men and women, rarely wearing much clothes, look fantastic. This is from the 50s. He wasn't quite there yet. Still, you look at the cover, yeah, he likes drawing women. Not a particularly great cover, but it's interesting that it's Frazetta's first work with Buck Rogers. I don't know how much work he did before this. This seems like it was probably pretty early in his career. Fair market on this is $20,000 at 9.6. This is a really high-grade copy. It's off-white, but it's 9.6. Bidding is only at $5,700. I don't know how many Frazetta collectors there are out there. I would think the bidding would be higher if the fair market's at $20,000. There was a sale on Heritage in June of 23 for $20,400. So that set the price where it is. And we'll see if ComicLink matches it. It's amazing that this is from 1953. This copy looks like it was printed 5 or 10 years ago. And now we are at Fantastic Four, and we're going to spend some time here. because I just finished doing a big research project on Fantastic Four. My previous video was the 10 most valuable Fantastic Four issues, so I got it all in my head. Obviously, the most valuable Fantastic Four issue is the first one. That's where we're going to start. We got a 5.5 off-white, not particularly high grade. The fair market on Fantastic Four #1 has taken a beating in the last couple of years, in spite of the movie still being in theaters right now and being pretty well received. I don't think it did great in the box office, but people liked it. It's certainly the best Fantastic Four movie. We got a sale in April of this year on Heritage for $27,000, and then a sale in February of last year on Golden for $29,280. That's setting the fair market at $29,000. There haven't been too many sales since, surprisingly. There are 74 5.5 copies. So I don't know why people aren't selling them. I guess I know why. People are holding them because the movie's coming out and they want to get that. It doesn't seem to be happening. The fair market at 5.5 is the same as the fair market at 6.0. Looking at that, I wouldn't want to buy a 5.5 copy if a 6.0 has the same current fair market value. I'd be looking for a 6.0. I don't think this is going to go for fair market. It's at $14,000 right now. It's off-white. I got my copy right here. My copy's 4.0 cream to off-white. So this one's worth a whole lot less than that one. There was a time when this one was worth, I think, in the high 20s or 30,000 or more dollars. It's way down from that. This one is too. I think now that the movie's out and the movie didn't exactly set the world on fire, I think people who are planning to sell this and hoping to get a spike in sale price are going to be disappointed. But I really hope I'm wrong. Oh, look. Fantastic Four signed by Stan Lee. I mean, that is pretty cool. That of all the books Stan Lee signed, this is the most logical book to have him sign. This and Captain America Comics 3. This is an interesting one. Fantastic Four #2 in 9.4. That is a super high grade copy. There's one 9.8 copy of this book, 3 9.6s. This is one of the 9 9.4s. This is before they got the costume, first appearance of the Skrulls. Still had not established the Marvel look yet. It was one of the last 10-cent books. In fact, the next month, issue 3 was 12 cents. So the last 10-cent issue is before they had the Marvel box in the upper left corner. Doesn't really look like a Marvel Silver Age book, but it's a really, really nice, clean copy with white pages. Bidding on this one's currently $22,510. Fair market $78,000. It's got a long way to go to hit that. There was a $78,000 sale before the pandemic boom, during the pandemic, but before the prices really started to spike on Heritage in November of 2020. It sold for $78,000. That's what's setting the fair market on this. We've gone way up and then gone way down. I don't think it's going to hit 78,000. Based on the current bid of 22,510, I don't think it's going to get anywhere near that. It'll go probably in the 40s or 50s. I actually saw this copy on Ross at ComicLink's YouTube. He went through the room where they've got these books stored, and you can see him picking up this book. This is his favorite book in the auction. So if anybody wants to get it for him as a birthday present, I know he would really, really like it. That would be a really nice gift for Ross. If you want to be super generous, you can get it for him. I love issue 3 of Fantastic Four. This is maybe my favorite Fantastic Four cover. One of my favorite covers. It's the first one where they're in costume. They're in their flying bathtub, the first version of the Fantastic Car. We've got split bidding on this one. We've got 2 copies at 9.2 and 9.0. The 9.2 is off-white to white. The 9.0 is just off-white. But they both look great. I'd say the 9.2 does look a little bit better. This is a book I really want to get. I'm not going to buy a 9.0 copy of it. I'd like to get it at 4 something or 5 something. As I've said, I'm a mid-grade guy. Currently bidding at $15,500 for the 9.2 and $3,600 for the 9.0. And the fair market on the 9.2 is $30,000. Fair market on the 9.0 is $17,500. So this 9.0 is much lower than it should be right now. Somebody better bid on it. So the 9.0 should end up going for about 2/3 the value of the 9.2. But right now it is at 1/4 the bid of the 9.2. That will change. Then we've got Fantastic Four #4. I'm not going to spend time on it because it's only a 7.0. I am, though, because I'm super biased, going to talk about Fantastic Four #5. Why? This copy is 5.0 off white to white pages. Right here, I have my Fantastic Four number 5, 5.0 off white to white pages. Obviously not this copy that's up for auction, but it is identically graded copy that I just bought last year. Wasn't planning on buying it, but I saw it for a super low price, about 2/3 of fair market. And this was after Robert Downey Jr. had been announced as the new Dr. Doom. I couldn't believe somebody was auctioning it. Nobody was bidding on it. So I scooped it up, which made the price go way down because that was on Comic Connect, which reports to Go Collect. So that dropped the fair market value. I bought it for $6,100 in December of last year. Fair market at the time was $9,000. That pushed it down to $7,500, $7,250, and then the subsequent sales of $7,800 and $8,100, while they were a lot higher than what I paid, they've still pushed that value down further. I think this is the Doom key, great investment. All that said, the bidding on this right now is $5,200. Fair market, a few days ago when I made the spreadsheet, the fair market was $7,250. It's dropped further to $6,750. So the fair market on this book, it keeps on dropping. Despite the fact that they're off filming Avengers Doomsday right now, there's every reason to think that Dr. Doom is going to be a big deal in the years ahead. And yet this book, which is the Doom key, keeps on dropping in value. There's a bunch of other books that some of which are in this auction that are being thrown around as key books to get if you want to invest in Dr. Doom. This is the one. It's at $5,200 now. If it closes at fair market, $6,750, that will be tragic. I will be bummed. I'll be really bummed if this closes for less than what I paid for it last year. Skipping over a bunch of these. The next key Fantastic Four book after number 5 is actually issue 12. They've got a 9.4 white pages of issue 12. This is a great book. It's the first Marvel crossover. I've also made a bunch of videos where I've talked about this particular issue. In fact, I did a whole video just on this issue. I opened up my copy of it. 17 9.4 copies and 6 9.6s and none in 9.8. Fair market on this book is $36,000 and the bidding right now is half that at $18,249. This probably will drop down from where it was 3 years ago, but I do think demand for this book is still pretty high. So I think it'll be close. It'll be up in the 20s or 30s. It's already at 18,000. So yeah, it'll go for a fair bit more than this. And bidding split on this one, we got a 7.5 as well. Still got a long way to go, but we're going to get there. We're going to get through this whole auction and we're going to talk about all the really good books. And then when it's all done, I'm going to do another video when these books close and we'll see how wrong I was about my guesses on what these would sell for. That's all for now. Thank you for watching.